Okay, we were in foods for energy. So, what I was telling about the food for energy means sugar or glucose is the simple sugar is the most preferred carbohydrate for consumption. Coming to the lipid, lipolytic, I was explaining there in the last video. Our microorganisms use fat as a source of energy when sugar is not available to them, sugar being the first preference. In such cases, fat must be hydrolyzed with the aid of lipase to glycerol and fatty acid, and then these byproducts serve as energy sources. Most of the lipolytic organisms will be proteolytic also. Please keep that in mind. An example for lipolytic is your Pseudomonas, right? So cellulolytic, coming to cellulolytic, complex carbohydrates such as cellulose can be utilized by comparatively few organisms. For example, Clostridium. Starch can be by many other organisms, but cellulose is a little bit complicated. Pectinolytic means pectinase producing organisms. The enzyme pectinase should be produced. So example is bifidobacteria. And you might have observed that maltose and lactose in milk is not actually attacked by any of the or any Tom, Dick, and Harry organisms. There are certain organisms which are able to grow on the milk only, like yeast cannot come and grow in maltose in milk. So this all states that the ability of an organism to produce or to break down or to survive on those foods only will make an entry and flourish on that type of food. Coming to foods for growth, the microorganisms differ in their ability to utilize nitrogenous compounds as a source of nitrogen for growth, like peptides are there, amino acids, urea, ammonia, and many other simpler nitrogenous compounds may also be available to organisms, but not to others. Some of the acetic acid bacteria, uh, you might have seen that grow best with polypeptides as nitrogen foods, and they cannot attack casein. So many kinds of molds are proteolytic. Proteolytic bacteria grow best at the pH near neutrality and are inhibited by acidity. See the just observe the factors which are all involved like a network. Then coming to carbon sources, for many carbon for growth may come partly from carbon dioxide, but more often it comes from organic compounds. And the last one being the minerals required by organisms are always present at low levels in the food. So, food for these are all the necessary things like not for energy but for the growth. So, nitrogenous compounds, carbon source, nitrogen source, all this in the first semester you have studied. Coming to your accessory foods or vitamins. Here, what I have done is I have put all the vitamins B1, B2, B3, B5, B6, B12. Most of the natural plant and animal food stuff contains an array of these vitamins which are not synthesized by microorganisms. So if you see the source also there, so if you see the sources from which type of food all these vitamins are coming, meat are high in B vitamins, fruits are very high in acid, yeah, C vitamins. Egg white contains biotin, that's different. Like egg white also contains an avidin which ties up the biotin there. So thus avoids microorganisms to grow. And processing of foods often reduces the vitamin content. You know about thiamine, pantothenic acid, folic acid, ascorbic acid. These are all heat labile. Thus the specific nutrient composition of the food can significantly affect the type of microorganisms capable of exploiting that nutrient environment. In general, the better the medium for an organism, the wider the range of temperature, pH, and water activity over which growth can take place. So that's about the nutrient content. Coming to antimicrobial compounds. What are antimicrobial compounds? In the food itself, there are some things, components which act as antimicrobial and defend themselves, defend the organisms, right? So the natural antimicrobial chemicals found, they are found in many foods. Some or most of these may be the part of original plant for the defense mechanism, as I said. In plants, why I have put there as phytoalexins is, in plants, a class of antimicrobials known collectively as phytoalexins are produced in response to microbial invasion. Few of them which I have quoted in this tabular column. See, there are some isothiocyanates acting as antimicrobials in the foods like mustard, watercress, cabbage, brassica, all those things. Thiosulfinates, that is, allicin is there, which will act as antimicrobial. The chemical name is thiosulfinates there. All allium species, if I tell allium species for microbiology students, you will not understand. Probably botany students are familiar with that. Allium species means all your garlic, onion, leeks, what you use, all those belong to alien species. Fasciolin, in your green beans, you see fasciolin, they are also antimicrobial. You would have never thought that even green beans will have some antimicrobials in that, right? Benzoic acid and sorbic acid are seen in cranberries, mountain ash berries, etc. Eugenol in cloves and cinnamon. So that's not a surprising factor that we all keep these cloves when we have a toothache. So some antimicrobial strongly it is acting. Fine. Then thymol in oregano and thyme it is seen. Cinnamic aldehyde in cinnamon and cassia. See how rich our spices, Indian spices, all have antimicrobials. No wonder we eat all these species and stay immune to our microorganisms. They will not easily grow on our food. So Indian food, those very specific, I mean, though very spicy, they are all helpful in keeping the microorganisms away. And you also know something that green olives will have something called oleuropein. These oleuropein also act as antimicrobials. But you have to keep in mind that when green olives are subjected for fermentation, the first step in that fermentation process is to remove the oleuropein. Why we have to remove the oleuropein though it is antimicrobial? Because we have to allow the organisms to grow there. Fermenting organisms should go. That is why if oleuropein is there, fermentation is disturbed. So removal of oleuropein only will give way for the process of fermentation of green olives. And you know, by God, fermented green olives are so very tasty. Then in milk also there are some antimicrobial compounds, that is lactinins and anticoliform factors are there. And in egg white, lysozyme is seen. These are all the different, many more may be there. I could gather this many. So please search for many more antimicrobial substances also. And also some of the certain byproducts of microorganisms growth, that is the metabolic products of the microorganisms growth in the food also will act as antimicrobials to others. For example, propionic acid produced by propiony bacteria in cheese, that is Swiss cheese, is inhibitory to molds. Propionibacteria should be produced in Swiss cheese to bring in that taste, right? So that will make it as inhibitory to molds. Molds cannot grow on this cheese. Alcohol formed in quantity by wine yeast inhibits competitors. That's the reason you will not find any other organism competing there in your wine because yeast is there. Nisin produced by, or you can call it as nisin, certain strains of Streptococcus lactis. This inhibits lactate fermentation. Certain processing also inhibits microorganisms, like what happens in the heating foods may result in the formation of inhibitory substances. Heating lipids will hasten the auto oxidation and make them inhibitory. Browning of concentrated sugar solutions, syrup may result in the production of furfural and hydroxymethyl furfural, which are inhibitory to fermenting organisms. So there are many the process we use, the protocol we use to prepare our food, the spices we use, all these as a package will take care that your food is not infected by your microorganisms or contaminated by your microorganisms. In spite of that, if we are getting any infection, that is God's gift, right? So coming to the last factor, biological structures. All the foods were at some stage alive, right? And many such fruits, vegetables, and some seeds are still viable at the point of consumption. You all agree with me. Some we eat live, some we eat not alive, all those things. The inner part of whole healthy tissues of living plants and animals are either sterile or low in microbial content. Often, there is a protective covering about the food. The first of these is the integument. All these integuments, skin, shell, husk, grain. If I speak in scientific language, only botany students can understand all these things. Yet, we are talking about f- plant food, means it is botany only. So, this is a physical barrier to infections such as skin, shell, husk, or rind. Skin is also called as rind of a product. It's usually composed of macromolecules relatively resistant to degradation and provides an very inhospitable environment for microorganisms. See, layers of fats in animal over the meat may protect that part of the flesh. Layers of fat, which I have not mentioned here. Then scales may protect the outer part in the fish. That is why the scales are there. Hair on the skin of animals is also termed as protective. When there is any physical damage of any of these barriers, or the food is subjected to any sort of processing, the microbial invasion is seen. So that is how, in spite of natural covering, also physically, if there is any damage, you can see the microorganisms. And also, this comes to an end of internal intrinsic factors. But one thing we have to remember, each of the compositional factors of food, that is, it can be water activity, it can be pH, OR potential, nutrient content, can significantly affect the resulting microbial flora. Many of these factors interact, and one must be concerned with the total ecology of the food, right? We should be knowing what is in and out. Why? To prevent or retard the growth of several of these microorganisms. Fine. So, next we will pass on to extrinsic factors, which is the outside factors, which is not inside the food. So, as usual, please review all these factors and we'll meet you in the next class. Bye bye.